Hi, and welcome to Habits for Humans, the podcast that explores what makes people tick and how to program this brain of ours to do what we actually want it to do. I'm your host, Kim Flynn, and today we're going to talk to Carmen Ray, the lovely Carmen Ray, and talk about balance in life and in business for business owners. I don't know what it is, but post 2020, it just seems like we haven't quite, as an entire world, gotten on our feet again. And now more than ever before, we really recognize the need for mindfulness, the need for self-care, the need for recharging our batteries and treating ourselves like we're actually humans instead of just these robot machines that can just go, go, go. So love this topic. Carmen's going to talk to us about the spices of life for women entrepreneurs and go through the spices acronym. So super excited to get started with that with her. As a FYI, we do have giveaways for our listeners at the end, so stay tuned to the end for giveaways. And first, a word from our sponsor. Habits for Humans is brought to you by Card Salad, a health and wellness company that teaches you how to program your brain using systems and habits. So you know how everyone wants to eat healthy, but it takes so long to do all the meal planning and the shopping and the figuring out what there is to eat. And so usually you just default to throwing a freezer bag of peas in the microwave, heating up some macaroni and saying it's good. So instead of that plan, with very little additional effort, you can have your meal planning done for you. All your food is always ready to cook in your refrigerator, just waiting for you. And so the product is called Eat Well. It's one of several products from Card Salad that are organizational products for the home. And it is a done for you meal planning system. And it comes with a menu board that you hang on your fridge, recipe cards that you swap out, done for you shopping list. So you can just load that onto Walmart.com or whatever your grocery store is, get those groceries delivered to you, and the whole week of meal planning is done for you. So stay tuned to the end of this podcast. We'll give you a free week of meal planning delivered to your inbox. So I'm super excited to introduce Carmen to you. Every once in a while, you meet someone who is just so highly connected and highly loved. And Carmen is one of those people. I've known Carmen for a little bit now, and she just loves to share resources with everyone. So I'm so excited to introduce you to her. We always ask our guests to give us a short bio, and Carmen gave us a very short bio. You ready for this bio? She is a best-selling author, a business mastery coach, and a social entrepreneur for over 30 years. Enough said. Please welcome the lovely Carmen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you,
Yay.
Kim. I'm so excited to be sharing this time with you today.
Perfect. So, Carmen, welcome. We always start with your number one habit to manage your own mental wellness. So, what is a practice that you do on a daily basis just to manage the stress of daily life?
Yes, my very favorite go-to practice is journaling. That's my very favorite. I have a system in place that I've had for many years. I started journaling at 16, and Monday through Saturday, I write in my journal. At minimum, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. But then on Sundays, I reserve that day to literally read my old journals.
Oh, that
So
is
that is something that,
awesome.
yeah. So that's something that I have found to be very healing, and it always keeps me in a place where I'm grounded, not so much about what I'm writing, but it really helps me to see what things have already come to pass, as well as how many things that repeat themselves over the years when they're not resolved.
Oh, this is fascinating. Okay, so I'm an avid journal writer as well. Like
Okay.
I could write, honestly, Carmen, an hour a day in my journal. No problem, time would just fly. And I have a whole process I take myself through with all these different categories and whatever else. So I'm a
Okay.
nerd that way. It's like mental processing, emotional processing, all that kind of stuff. But I
Mhm.
never go back and read them. I feel like I'm missing out on half of the value. Will you tell us, like, do you read that weeks or do you just go back and choose random ones to read, or what do you do?
Yeah, yeah, because I really feel it's important to be spirit led on what to read. So I never make a plan. I have like stacks and stacks of journals, and I pick anything randomly and just say, whatever I'm reading today is what I believe is going to be my gift for today. So I don't
Oh,
have a system. Yeah.
that is beautiful. It's almost like you're treating yourself like scripture. Like, I have I have learned these things. I have written them down. Why am I not reading them back to myself? I had a huge duh moment a second ago. Thank you, Carmen. I love that principle. I absolutely love it.
You're
All
so
right.
welcome.
Let's dive into it. So you have a whole organization that's dedicated to primarily women entrepreneurs, if I'm not mistaken, and helping them with mental wellness and just processing and having balance. Is that right?
That's right. You
Okay.
nailed it. I love entrepreneurship in its entirety, but we have to identify when we're really drilling down who is it that that we should be serving. I just have a real passion for working not only with women, but women like 45 and up, ideally that 50, where we can really take an opportunity to reinvent ourselves whenever we have the right support system, the right resources, and the right group of women that's really willing to do some storytelling.
I love it. And so you chose the 40 plus crowd, which I am very much a member of. So I'm feeling that there's something that happens. For me, it was a couple of years ago when I closed the doors of my business, and I didn't want to. And that was really painful. It really makes you look at, oh my goodness, okay, I am middle aged. I'm halfway through my life. I have, gutted this out for 20 years, working really, really hard, and then it's gone, and then I just am like, what do I do next? And I
Yeah.
imagine that most people have some kind of midlife crisis, post COVID crisis, post losing your job, your spouse, your
Mhm.
whatever it is crisis. Carmen, how do we get through this? How do we get through it together, and what are your steps?
Well, one of the reasons that I'm so thrilled to be having this conversation with you today is because you are definitely one of those women that gave the gift of sharing your story. So, one of the things that I use in my networking is being very intentional on connecting with women who are willing to share their stories. So, it's not so much about the product and the service that we have, because we can always see competition in that area, but no one can compete with your journey and your story. So periodically I would just go look you up, and I go to YouTube, and I seen your story about transitioning from your other company. See, that's the gift that we have as women entrepreneurs. Our whatever we've acquired, there's no losses. There's absolutely
Mm.
no losses, because everything that you've acquired and managing your family, managing your career, when you decide to become an entrepreneur or change your entrepreneurial endeavors, that skill set comes with you. So one of the worst things that we can do, and I definitely did this for years, is consider it a failure.
Mm.
So it took me years after closing my child care center, so many abrupt business mishaps, but not until around maybe a good 8 years ago that was I able to see that those were just gifts. Those that was real training ground, and my experience and my skill sets, your skill sets, they are transferable. And whatever we decide to do, we can take them all with us, and we can still rock it out on our entrepreneurial journey.
Well, that's well said. So beautiful. I want to read your own words back to you, and,
Okay.
and do the journaling thing right here, real time, right now. So,
Okay.
there are no losses with what you have acquired. You are not a failure. They were gifts. That was your training ground. Look at you. You're
Yes,
writing
I love
scripture.
that.
You're writing scripture here. All right. So, talk to us about the spices. And I actually really enjoy that acronym. Those of us in the coaching training space, we always have a bazillion acronyms because it makes things easier to train and easier to understand and easier to remember. But some of them actually pinpoint what it is that you're trying to say. So I think for me, spices lights me up because I'm like, okay, it's not about must have balance in my life. It's like, what do I want? What gives me the
Yes.
juice? What gives me the spice? So I love that, first of all. So tell us about spices. Take it away.
Okay. Okay, yeah, the spices of life is something that came to my attention probably about 20, yeah, my oldest daughter is 26. So about 26 years ago, I was taking a parenting class. And in the parenting class, I was introduced to a concept called the spices of life. And so let's go through the spices so that our listeners can really be able to apply this in their own lives. So the first S in spices is your spiritual practice. And what I loved about this, because I was at a real transitional spot for my religious kind of thing. I was raised up in a lot of traditional doctrine, and I was really evolving to non-denominational, had more having my own personal relationship. So in spiritual practice, it means whatever that thing is that you know that helps you to know that it's something greater than yourself. So if your spiritual practice is going to drive by the beautiful lake, or you see a body of water, or you see some beautiful trees and you don't know how they got there, you have never met the person that put them there. That means that's your spiritual practice, and you need to be conscious about practicing that more often. Then the next letter.
We have to stop and discuss every
Okay.
single one.
Yes,
We've got to stop and discuss here.
yes, yes.
Okay, so you left your more traditional denomination of Christianity, I'm guessing, and are more open to whatever spirituality means for you. I had a similar journey. So I'm here in Utah. I was raised Mormon and left that and have had the same thing. And here's what people don't understand. I'm going to speak for both of us here, Carmen.
Okay.
When you leave a religion, you don't leave the spirituality behind. Like the spirituality that you gain from that. Wait, I have a brilliant quote on this. There are no losses. There are no losses to what you have acquired, right?
That's
You're not
right.
like you take the good that actually did resonate with you there, and you find your own practice. There's a book I read when I was leaving my religion, and it was called something like Finding Your Own Religion. And I was like, yes, you take the
Mhm.
things that you like, the rituals that you appreciated in
Yes.
Catholicism, or the music from Christianity. You take those pieces that you love, and you form your own. Anyway, just wanted to resonate with you there and
Yes.
say I'm there with you. All right, so that's
Yes.
spiritual practice.
Yeah,
What's
spiritual practice. And let me give you an example of the breakthrough to help me to kind of get clarity on where I was. So I had this good friend who was a pastor in a very religious, organized religious church, and we were really good friends. We go hang out. I have a Cosmopolitan, and she have ice water, like, so she just accepted me for who I was.
she's
And I
missing
didn't.
out, but that's okay.
Yeah, right. And so she was, kind of trying to give me her religious perspective. And I told her, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just at a point in my life with my personal relationship with my faith. I just cannot subscribe to people being all of anything. I feel that everybody's relationship with their spiritual life is personal. And she was like, yeah, because you don't want to find yourself like worshiping a Buddha. And when she said that, it was like a trigger for me, because I had just seen Ike and Tina Turner's movie, and I don't remember the name of it right now. But I remember Tina Turner taking the chanting of the Buddha and making it work. So I remember saying to her, listen, girl, if the chanting and the little Buddha helped Tina stop getting her butt whooped, I'm all for the little Buddha.
We subscribe to chanting and little Buddhas. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was so insulted, but I'm like, because that's what worked for her. That means she found something deeper. So I always remember that conversation when I think about my spiritual transition. So the next letter is P for physical. This is one that I really had a lot of guilt and struggle around when I was introduced to the spices of life. Physical means how you take care of your body. It means what you eat, you drink, your movement. The fact that we are physical beings means that there's a need for touch. There's a healthy expectation around sex. And so because of that, I was like, oh my goodness, if I had to rate myself in that area, I'm like, I'm losing. And so that was a struggle for me. But the physical is making sure that you have an awareness of it, and so that you can bring your attention to it.
Okay, so we had to talk about that too. Most people, when they talk about physical, we only talk about food and exercise, all those guilt-inducing or sometimes
Yes.
guilt-inducing things. And then sometimes you hear about sleep. But this is the first time, Carmen, that I have heard someone say touch. And that is a human need. Like I have a little dog that's somewhere around wandering. She has a need for touch, and just like that, we have a need for touch. That's beautiful. And I like need for sex. I subscribe to that.
Yes,
I
yes.
like that as well. So including touch and intimate touch in that description of physical practice, taking care of your body. That's beautiful. Keep going.
Okay, okay, thank you. And then the next letter is I. And this is one that I really loved here. And that's about our intellectual stimulation. So we have a tendency to gravitate to things that we already love. So if you would come to my home, you will see more than clothes, more than furniture. I have books, right? But the books are all about the same thing. They're all about like self improvement, business. It's all the same thing. And so our intellectual need and the spices is about us stretching ourselves to something new. Be intentional about setting up a new learning about something, a foreign language, a different type of music, just to stretch ourselves. Because what I notice is the older we get, the more complacent we can become, and just really leaning into the things we're comfortable with. And ideally, that's the time when we really want to stretch ourselves to learn something new.
I'm getting so much out of this, Carmen. I just had a challenge for myself pop up because you're calling me out whenever I see, intellectual stimulation or, mental whatever. I'm like, yeah. I read a lot of books and I'm good. So check, right? And you're
Yeah,
saying, no.
right.
You and I have the same books. We have the same piles of books stacked up in our houses. We probably all read the same author. And
Yeah.
you're saying stretch to something new. And so my little brain is chirping at me with all this political stuff. I was on Facebook last night and I just am like, oh, like, reading all the political craziness, extremes on both ends.
Hmm.
And normally I just do a talk to the hand when it comes to any of that. What if, Carmen,
Uh-huh.
what if my intellectual practice is to go to Barnes and Noble today? Because I'm an old
Hmm.
school book girl. Well, I still have Kindle, but
Me too.
but I love writing in books, right? The physicality of it, I really enjoy. What if I go and buy a book from the opposite political party, something that I might think is insane and nonsensical, and what if I try on another viewpoint?
I,
Ah!
I I would love that. I challenged myself to do that. Now, when I think back as a little girl, my father passed away. I think 2017, and I was a talk show. I am still a talk show junkie. Only thing different is now I have it on my phone and not on the radio that he used to listen to all the time. But now when I think about it, like I would have never seen my father as a conservative, but those were the stations that he always listened to. So because of that, I remember me saying, "Oh my goodness, he's talking crazy. Why are you listening to him?" And I remember just having these dialogue with him on my way to school or whatever. And I remember him saying that you don't always want to listen to things from from your perspective. Like you need to know what other people thinking. So by far, my father was the most brilliant man I knew with a fifth grade education. And now so much of those lessons about how we can stretch ourselves to see other people's perspective will really help us to win in life overall because we have an expanded view. So your ideal about grabbing something from a different political persuasion, I think will serve you well.
Oh, you're so great. Thank you. Thanks for the inspiration on that one. I also have to say, with this intellectual stimulation, so I am not super musical. I can't carry a tune to save my life, and I took piano lessons, when I was like in fourth grade through school through a year for a year, and you can get pianos free. Did you know this? You can get pianos, these giant, they weigh 700 to 1,000 pounds. You can get them free or $50 on Facebook, whatever, because everyone wants to get rid of them because they are old and clunky. And so I got a piano.
Wow.
I know. And I'm taking this online course and I can't even tell you, I'm terrible. My kids like make fun of me all day long. I'm terrible at it, but I love it because I'm so bad at it. Like I love just being in this space of new learning. So thank you for the push to have that intellectual stimulation. Now I have to go read uh, a political book that's going to trigger me like crazy, and I'm going to breathe through it. I'm going to be a better person for it.
Well,
All right.
listen, you're really mastering that category with your example of the piano. So yeah, so I just want you to realize that because that's a perfect example. If you were facilitating the class, I would say, Kim, use the example about the piano because that's a perfect example of taking something that you're not familiar with and challenging yourself to apply it.
Well, thank you. I feel like I just got a gold star from the teacher. So thank you.
Yay!
Yay. All right, let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
Creative expression.
Yes. So creative expression is how do you being mindful that we are all creative beings. So when we look at the person who is a talented poet, oh my goodness, Jill Scott, I love her music. She is so talented. And when we think of creativity, we're looking at art and we're not looking at the fact that we are all creative beings. The fact of how you decide to wear your hair, how you decide to just show up, how you decide to put your home together. That's your creative expression. And it's about us looking to see what areas in our life do we really need to embrace or expand upon our creativity. Most importantly, the first thing we want to do is acknowledge the importance of being creative, and that regardless if you think you are or not, we are creative beings.
Give us some more examples of that from your life, if you don't mind.
Oh my goodness, yes. So for me, I'm a mannequin shopper, and one of my good friends is really into like Tai Chi and teaching me about the chakras. And so when I was going through learning about the spices of life, I told her we have to evaluate ourselves on a scale of 1 to 5. I said, in the area of creativity, I'm going to give myself about a 1.5. I can't sing, I don't cook, and I just have no creativity. So she comes back to me and says, Carmen, you are one of the most creative people I know. And as it relates to ideals, connecting people for business ideas, like that is your and I never seen that as creativity. So what she shared with me is that usually if you lack creativity, is something in your midsection that's a barrier. You should probably, get that checked out medically. And when she said that to me, it felt like a woo woo, like kind of thing. Like, what do that have to do with creativity? But can I tell you, after I got that insight from her, I went to the doctor. At that time, I was still having my periods, and they used to be brutal, like literally to the point where I was about to pass out. So sure enough, what she said, and the reason why I was a mannequin shopper, I had no ability to put things together. I have to see it already done. And then I went to my doctor and they explained these huge fibroids that I had. So back to the midsection. And once I had that surgery, I started being more feeling comfortable in being able to express my creativity through my home and just seeing things. And I feel like everything had to be put together before I could be really creative. I could really like identify what colors I like, what textures, what patterns. So that's something that I learned as I explore creativity.
I love that your definition of creativity includes what you look like. So I have a sister. I have many sisters, but one of my sisters, she's my absolute role model when it comes to dressing.
Okay.
She doesn't care, like, and not in a bad way, in a good way. Like she mixes things that I wouldn't think to mix. She wears a giant wild one earring and not the other. Just like, and she dresses for the joy of it, for the joy of how she feels when she's dressing. And so I'm kind of taking a note from her and trying to I don't know, free up the way I look a little bit, free up my wardrobe a little bit more, and start wearing some risky pieces where I bought a pair of leather pleated, they're fake leather, pleather pleated pants. They look like they're straight out of the 80s. And I was like, I'm gonna wear these, damn it. I haven't worn them yet.
Right.
I'm gonna put these on.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Now that's a great example of creativity, because if they didn't appeal to you, you would not have even considered. That's what creativity is about, really taking the time and pay attention to what appeals to us and going with it.
I love it. Okay, so kind of like listening to yourself and saying, "What
Hmm.
do I want? What do I feel like doing? What do I feel like express? How do I feel like expressing myself?" Let's go on to
Yes.
the next E. What's the next E?
Okay, so the E is emotional. How are we handling our emotions and being intentional with that? So we talked about journaling already. That's a great way to express yourself. Writing in general is one of the best ways, but also making sure you have that person, a few people, if you're really fortunate, that you can be able to share things with without a lot of judgment. We all have a kind of a perspective on things that we hear, but if you could really identify that quality person in your life that you can share, you can have a certain level of transparency and not feel judged. That is what that emotional need is all about. Because here's the deal, Kim, we're going to get all of these spices and all of these needs met, but it's all about, do we get them met in a negative way or a positive way?
Hmm.
So if someone finds themselves in a gang, or if they find themselves uh in
As an
some type of,
alcoholic, yeah.
yeah, social setting, that's still getting an emotional need met. So it's all about us having the awareness and having the necessary tools to be able to identify, this is a need, that my emotional needs, but how am I choosing to get them met?
I like that.
Hmm.
I'm just thinking through that. I've never really contemplated that for your emotional well-being, you need people to share without judgment. And I think about that and I'm like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. But oftentimes we just leave it as, oh, your friends and family. But when you go through your family members one by one, do they listen without judgment?
Hmm.
And maybe for a lot of us, not so much. And so, and then your friends, do your friends listen without judgment? So that's an interesting principle to go through and actually list out the people in your life and say, who are my real people?
Yes, who are your people? And being able to identify the fact that sometimes emotionally you just need to share and you don't necessarily need feedback. One of my mentors shares this thing about, as adults, um, we don't need permission, we need support.
Mm,
And I always use that. So I look at, before I share anything of substance with a person, do this person even have the ability to, I don't need their permission because we're adults, right? And so do I even believe this person has the capacity to give me support? And that's the way we support each other, by just listening without judgment. And we don't always need somebody to tell us what to do. We just need a place to share.
yeah. I had this
Hmm.
conversation with my husband last night. I was in like I saw something online and I was all excited about it and I was like, "Oh, this could be really cool," that kind of thing. And he does what he does best because he is a brilliant analyst.
Okay.
He analyzed it, and I was like, "Dang it, that's not what I wanted."
Right.
And so I realized in that moment it's on me to say, "Hey, what I want to share something that's really exciting to me, and what I'm looking for is for you to be excited for me. I'm not looking for, and just
Yes.
be outright with it and say this is what I'm looking
Yes.
for in this conversation." He's so brilliant with feedback, though. I frequently go to him, if not every day, every other day, and say, "Hey, I have this idea. Poke holes," and that's his like green
Yes.
light to use his analytic brain as much as
Wow.
possible. But most of the time, well, not most of the time, but when I'm in an emotional space, I'm like, don't poke holes.
Right.
Don't poke holes. Yeah.
I love that.
All right, your last one, S.
Okay, so the last S is, especially since the pandemic, social. How are we getting our social needs met? As women entrepreneurs, especially for me, like, business is my social thing. And I had to get to the point where I didn't feel guilty about it. I have friends back from high school in my early 20s that we used to be able to hang out and have a great time. And we still do to a certain degree. But if I start identifying people that I am feeling drawn to, the people I could really have a ball with, those are going to be women entrepreneurs because we have more in common, and I know how hard they work. So if there's a group that I want to hang out and really just let my hair down with, that's going to be the group. And so that social need again is being able to say, where am I? You know, the pandemic has isolated so many of us. So what things can we do and still stay fairly healthy, but still get our social needs met?
I love that. What do you do to meet your social needs when you're stuck at home or, can't go
Yeah.
to events and things? What do you do?
Yeah, well, one of the things that my youngest daughter created that I feel that's filling a social gap is we have a family chat. Oh my goodness. And the craziness that goes on that family chat, it's like almost like a family reunion throughout the day or many days. So that's something that we created during the pandemic that has really been helpful. The other thing that I do is I'm just really, really intentional about getting out and socializing with one or two people where I can still feel safe, and then having that kind of social interaction. I hosted a women's retreat back in September here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And it was maybe 12, 13 of us. And so it was a small, intimate group. See, it was work directed, but just having that time to share and, just talk about what we've all been through, where we're going in our business, and how our personal lives impact our business decisions was phenomenal. So that was one of the big things that I'm committed to in 2022 is creating these quarterly social gatherings with a small group of women entrepreneurs.
Oh, I love that. So my life pre 2020 had a lot of retreats in it. We had a business that held 3 to 4 retreats every single week. So that's a lot
Mhm.
going on. And post 2020, I have so missed all that connection, all those people. I've just missed it. I've missed the social needs, obviously, and I realized how much of that was being met through work. And so for
Mhm.
2022, my I don't know, way of getting that social need met is I'm like, okay, I'm not hosting retreats anymore. I'm just going to go to them.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to all these retreats and it's
Yeah.
so much more fun, Carmen. It's so much more fun as an attendee than it is to run it. Let me tell you, I've
Yes.
been missing out. I've been missing
Right,
out.
right, right. Yes, I'm so
Anyway,
grateful. That was one of the most impactful experiences I had in business, and I've been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. Is when I attended one of your retreats. It was like literally life changing.
thank
It's
you.
what, yeah. So, yeah, you just have to really revisit a way of being able to not, necessarily take that on in both the space that you created and the format and the gift it was for entrepreneurs somehow some way that cannot be left. It has to be recreated because it was life changing for me.
Well, thank you. For me too.
You're welcome. You're
when
so
people when
welcome.
people are together with people, that's when the magic happens.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Well, that was amazing. Any final words on content before we get into your offer? Any final words on balance in a woman entrepreneur's life?
Yeah, my final words is just to give ourselves some grace. And when you're looking at creating your spices of life evaluation for yourself, just make sure that you know at different times in life that we may find ourselves on different spectrums because life happens. So the main thing we always want to remember is give ourselves some grace, go with the flow, but it's an awareness tool to let us know where am I here, what do I need to improve upon, and where am I really doing super well so we can give ourselves that credit.
Awesome. So, as we wrap things up, a reminder that the goal of this podcast is to program your brain to start instilling systems and habits into your daily life. It's not about what you know, it's about what you do, starting one very small step at a time in any of those areas. I'm going to get my butt to Barnes and Noble and buy a very triggering book. That's what I'm going to do. So, we have several giveaways here. Giveaway from our sponsor, Card Salad. Excuse me, go to habitsforhumans.com and sign up for a free 7-day Eat Real Foods challenge. It's 7 days of recipes, done for you shopping list, and meal planning done for you in a week, for a week. And then, Carmen, do you want to talk about your offer that you have and point people to your stuff as well?
Yes, absolutely. We have an amazing, amazing team that put together a magazine that because like Kim, I want to feel something in my hand when I'm reading it. Online can only do so much. So we have the Be Well magazine, Be Well for Women Entrepreneurs, and we want to give out 3 copies of that hard copy of that magazine. So if you visit Be Well for Women, and just let me know that you heard us on this podcast. Share one thing that Kim shared or that I shared that you recall, and then let us know that you are one of those winners. So the first 3 people that reach out, we're going to mail you a hard copy of the Be Well magazine.
Awesome. That's generous of you. Give us your website one more time too.
Yeah,
BeWellNetwork.com. Is that right?
it's Be Well for Women.
BeWellForWomen.com.
.com.
Perfect.
Hmm.
And that'll be in the show notes as well. So just check the links wherever you're listening or watching this, and you'll find that very generous offer from Carmen. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us, Carmen. I've had a delightful time. I could talk to you for hours, and now I know why you are so loved. You are just a loving person. Thanks to our listeners as well. This is Habits for Humans, the podcast that teaches you how to program your brain to maximize your potential. Thank you in advance for giving us a positive review. Thanks everyone.